drive fun, obviously you gotta go with Honda, but the question is, should you go with a Honda-built vehicle through and through? This Acura Integra LS does have a K20 swap, or do you go with something like a Mini Cooper, John Cooper Works, and then K-swap that? So today we have K-swap versus K-swap. We have two hearts, two powertrains and transmissions that are from Honda, but the body in one is also a Honda/Acura, and the other one is actually a Mini Cooper. This 2011 Mini Cooper John Cooper Works 2nd Gen, that's the R56. Originally, this was powered by a turbo 1.6 liter, making 208 horsepower, but the owner Mauricio has swapped it out for a Honda K20Z3 from a 2006 to 2011 Honda Civic Si. That is a 2-liter inline-4, naturally aspirated, making 197 horsepower, 139 pound-feet of torque with an 8,300 RPM redline. But it has a Kpro V4 tune by Hybridworks in Vallejo, so it's now making 228 wheel horsepower, 164 pound-feet of torque on 91 pump gas, and the redline is now 8,700 RPM. Both the Mini Cooper and Acura Integra are on Öhlins road and track coilovers, and whereas the Integra came with double wishbone front and rear suspension, this Mini Cooper is actually strut front and multi-link rear. In terms of weight, they're actually quite close. The Acura Integra is right around 2,700 pounds, whereas the Mini Cooper is just under 2,700 pounds. Oh, and listen to that. That sounds so good. And let's see how the Mini Cooper sounds as well. Full mod list, as always, down in the description. It is far more extensive. We are rocking some status grid seats. They're nice and comfortable. That we're leaned back quite a little bit. This wheel is telescoped all the way out. So again, if you are a taller driver, not gonna have the best ergonomics. My legs are a bit cramped and my arms are a bit stretched out. Now, we're gonna have to actually kill this app. Try opening up Honda Data again. There we go. Just like that, we got speed down here as well as over here. You can turn this off. We got this acuity shifter. We do have the same transmission from the 8th gen Civic Si as well. So both the engine and transmission. And let's actually press the sport mode button down here. There we go. And that will only weight up the steering. You have to really get in 6 inches deep before you can actually get a bit of bite and some pressure in that pedal. Makes heel toe a bit hard because your pedal goes all the way in. Wow, this thing feels so agile though. Short wheelbase, 2,700 pounds. I love this transmission, it's so tight. Short, crisp throws. I feel like I can't push the car too much, otherwise you can't hear me over the noise of this engine. Steering is actually communicating with you a little bit, which is always a nice treat in a front-wheel drive car because it tends to be a little bit compromised. Yeah, you can really feel quite a bit through the wheel. Let's give you a pull right here. like the powertrain here. The engine transmission combo is fantastic. K-swap, all the things. You have VTEC kicking in around 45 or 5,000. Redline up to 8,700. You'll see that this display will sometimes lag and you'll hit the hard rev limiter ahead of what the tach is reading. Transmission is so nice to use. Short, crisp throws without being overly mechanical and overly high effort between gates. Steering has a slightly slow-ish ratio, and the pedal box does require a lot of travel. And when you get on the throttle, you feel that torque steer. But in the current setting, it feels more like a feature than a bug. This thing is a lot of fun. It can be a handful though. You're really fighting with the steering wheel, trying to keep the car online at times. Yeah, I wish I could get more confidence from the brake pedal, but I think when you start driving it a bit harder, you just have to remind yourself it requires a lot of travel. And because there is so much travel, it is, I guess, pretty easy to modulate, but you just want a little bit more of that immediate bite and firmness to the pedal is all. Suspension is firm, but it is well damped. These are Öhlins DFVs after all. Owner tracks this, which is why it is stiffer and not as optimized for a bumpy canyon road, but it is not punishing. Oh, look at this. Look at the front end just. Oh man, the front end is constantly pulling you in one direction or another. Of all the front wheel drive cars I've driven, this one feels like quite a handful actually. I love the short wheelbase though. It makes the car feel so agile. The weight being well below 3,000 pounds as well, helping just, you know, carve the corners, change direction. And a pull. Big bump right there, you just feel single compression. Öhlins Road and Track are truly excellent for the price. If you're not going to go all the way top shelf, TTX, things like that, which obviously would be really high budget for a little Mini Cooper like this, I think the Öhlins DFVs are the next best thing. But now let's see how it compares to the Integra. Now it's time for a completely different flavor of K-swap. This is a 1994 Acura Integra LS that has been K-swapped with a 2001 Honda Civic EP3 Type R K20A. That's a full swap. It now has this 2-liter naturally aspirated inline 4 that is rated at 212 horsepower, 149 pound-feet of torque with an 8,400 RPM redline. But the owner Victor is running this on E85 and we're making 239 wheel horsepower, 166 pound-feet of torque. Big bump over the stock 1.8 liter that was making 142 when this car came from factory. So we have, again, double wishbone front and rear, 2,700 pounds, also on Öhlins Road and Track coilovers. That's 14K front, 10K rear springs. By the way, forgot to mention that on the Mini Cooper, it's 10K front, 6K rear, but obviously different cars, different suspension geometry, so you can't just apples to apples compare those spring rates. Gotta love these 90s Honda Acura keys, just so simple. got the OEM 6-speed manual transmission as well. When I say OEM, I mean from that EP3 Civic Type R. Now obviously a much older car by almost 2 decades, so the interior is much older in style, but also with older cars, the ergonomics I feel generally are more compromised, especially when you're getting into Japanese cars that aren't as built for taller body types. So very cramped with the pedal box here. Actually, part of the reason I have to sit so close is that there's so much travel to the clutch that my leg straightens out just to fully press in the clutch, and yet I'm still pretty bent with my right leg on the brake and the throttle. Then with the seat and the steering wheel, I'm all the way out like this, and I can't actually even reach the manual transmission. I have to lean forward. So really suboptimal ergonomics. Again, part of that is just with the age of the vehicles, because newer vehicles tend to have better ergonomics. Redline on this engine actually goes to 8,900, well off the tack there. We're gonna actually look for the check engine light as our shift light, if you will. And is this a fair comparison? No, that's not the point. This is just 2 different flavors of K-swapped front engine, front wheel drive vehicles to see which one is more fun. This one is obviously gonna be a lot cheaper than the Mini Cooper. Oh, you can tell this is a proper Type R engine. It has a bit better mid-range, and the VTEC kicks in at 5,500 versus 4,500 in the Mini Cooper. You can actually feel it here. There's more mid-range. God, this thing is a rocket. Brakes here are so solid. They feel so modern compared to every other part of this vehicle. Heel toe is a cinch. Steering ratio incredibly slow. Look how much I need to steer to get around these corners. So much input to the wheel. Oh my God. This is incredible. A lot of bounciness though. It feels like this car is, we're also road and track, but it still feels not quite dialed in. The damper's quite a bit softer than that Mini Cooper, but the bumps here, over the larger bumps, it feels like I'm bottoming out. It's quite harsh at that point. A little bit of slop to the front end. Older vehicle, par for the course. Definitely over boosted, a very light rack. Hydraulic steering, of course. Every time I shift, I have to lean forward a little bit, which is hilarious. I've never experienced that in any other car. Oh wow, yeah, getting quite unsettled over these bumps, but longer wheelbase, similar weight to that Mini Cooper. The Mini Cooper is incredibly nervous and twitchy. Even stock from factory before the mods, they tend to be that way. Part of that is going to be the shorter wheelbase and just the way they're set up. Let me first give you a pull. Gotta love hitting that rev limiter, the hard rev limiter on a proper Type R engine. I find myself having to saw at the wheel a bit to see what's going on at the front. Oh man, we are definitely bottoming out on some of these bigger bumps though. That needs to be adjusted. Nowhere near as much torque steer as in that Mini Cooper. And also it's not nearly as loud and punishing in here. Now, K-Series engines are gonna be pretty rough at idle. That's just the way that they are. But when you rev them out, super smooth at the top end. But this has very soft, some of the softest engine mounts you can get, whereas in the Mini Cooper, it's some of the stiffest. And as a result, in that Mini Cooper, it's so punishing inside, because it's not actually the exhaust that makes the Mini Cooper so loud. It actually has resonated muffler, a cat and everything. It's the engine mounts. And here, softer engine mounts are making a difference. You're hearing more induction and exhaust instead. But dude, this steering ratio is hilarious. Now the transmission here, I gotta say, is probably the biggest issue I have in driving this car confidently, because there is so much slop to this. It is so loose. It is the complete opposite end of the spectrum compared to that Mini Cooper, such that when you're shifting from second to third, you have to be so careful to make sure you're going into third and not first. You don't want to money shift this, because there's just a little bit too much of that slop and give here. Loosey-goosey. Even getting between gates is not as crisp. I really like the acuity shifter in that Mini Cooper over this one. But getting a Civic SI engine versus a proper Type R engine, you do feel that not just in the power delivery, the mid-range. It's just a more special engine. You can hear that VTEC crossover point right at 55. Pushing this car harder, and comes alive. This engine is the centerpiece here, obviously. If we could just dial in these coilovers a bit, I think this car would be a blast. I mean, it already is a blast, but it would give you so much more confidence when you're pushing in the canyons. Oh God, that is punishing, man. Much easier to heel toe here. See right there, went from 5th to 4th rather than 5th to 6th, because this thing is just so loose. Beautiful throttle response though. More natural than in that Mini Cooper. Pull to the sides because it has so much torque steer, even on the straights, constantly fighting you. A very physical experience driving that car, whereas this is a little bit more tame in that regard. It's not fighting you in the same way, and you can focus more just on driving rather than trying to control this wild animal beneath you. A bit of excess motion, you can feel slightly underdamped. And earlier on some of those larger bumps, hitting the bump stops. But my God, this car has so much potential, man. So much potential. And you gotta love that way back in the day, in the 1990s, Honda Acura were giving these cars double wishbone front and rear. Nowadays, even the Integra Type S, Civic Type R, even those don't get that. They have dual axis McPherson strut. And of course, there are many reasons as to why that is the case. As the car industry has moved forward and, you know, crash regulations and packaging and cost cutting and things just getting more competitive and such. But my God, man, I'm enamored with this car. Obviously, the Mini Cooper is a proper track build. It has greater potential from a performance standpoint, but on the canyons, it feels so twitchy. The engine mounts and the noise are just so overwhelming. And I do like the steering in that quite a bit more. It is much more communicative, direct, and while it still has a slower ratio, it feels a little bit more congruent and confidence-inspiring. Here, the steering ratio, very slow. Steering doesn't give you the same level of feedback. It is definitely overboosted. And the inputs here, you know, the transmission, not nearly as nice, and, you know, even ergonomically far more compromised. But the engine, you know, this EP3 Type R K20A is just such a phenomenal engine. And when that VTEC kicks in at 5,500, you really feel there's more mid-range and also more top end here that is just intoxicating. Keep in mind that part of the reason why the steering is so light and overboosted is that the power steering pump was designed for the B18 engine, not the K20A. So now with this new engine, it's actually overboosting with that pump. And also the clutch, part of the reason why you have such a long throw here to the clutch in comparison to the much more modern brake pedal and the throttle, which is kind of somewhere in the middle in terms of, I guess, throw and how modern it feels, is because that too, with the slave cylinder and such, is designed for the B18, not the K20. Both fantastic vehicles. Big thanks to Mauricio and Victor for letting me review their car. If you want your car reviewed, visit us on jabalandcars.com. Let me know what you think of these two examples. Which one would you take? Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.